Playboi Carti, Music. Or is it? Music is Carti's third album after Whole Lotta Red, which, took the world by storm. Music is a bit of a change from Whole Lotta Red. Sure, he keeps some of that rage, but he goes more into this trap, deep voice Carti, different style. But is it music? First of all, let's talk about the production. So the production is pretty solid throughout the whole album. It's nothing to write home about at times, but there are some really good shining moments on the album. The first song is this interesting and abrasive what could be rage track, and Crush is an interesting electronic track that mixes this gospel in. Very heavenly intro, sadly doesn't really amount to anything, but there are some good moments of production here. There's a really cool guitar on the song Cocaine Nose, but when you have a 30 track album, there's obviously going to be a lot of bloat and just some straight up misses on the production side. Most of the beats are just forgettable, but there is this one really terrible beat, OPM Baby. It just sounds like discordant noise. There's random gunshots, random ad-libs, random flow changes from Carti, and then this schizophrenic beat that just amounts to this absolute fuck pile of noise. And additionally, starts moaning at the end of the song. This is my least favorite track. Carti's performances themselves on this album are quite poor as well. Deep voice Carti. Deep voice Carti's existed since Vultures. He tried to debut it. He tried to sneak it in. Deep voice Carti has never been good in my opinion. When he's not biting Future, he just sounds like he's got a sock stuffed down his mouth. He sounds like a crocodile that's just not very smart. It's just this terrible sound that he really didn't need to resort to. He already had a good flow on all of his past projects. Additionally, when he does this deep voice, he's clearly just biting Future, Atlanta Trap legend. It's most noticeable on the tracks Overly and Jumpin', where he literally just sounds like Future. If you played that at a party, everyone would think it's Future. Nobody would even be able to tell that it's Carti. I think it's a shame he couldn't reinvent himself on this album without copying Future. Also, Carti just doesn't fit a lot of these songs. He's not meshing with the beats. Something's just off with everything. He's not rapping or punching in enough. Kind of a lack of effort. And he can even sound goofy at times, most notably on the outro, where he just sounds silly. He's slurring his words together. There are some moments of hope on this album, where he goes back to his old style of rapping. And he has some performances where he's not on bullshit, like the intro and I See You Baby Boy. I enjoyed those songs from him. But there's also an elephant in the room, the AI used on the album. Carti is no better than the beloved Kanye West when it comes to using AI. I believe what he did is he had another person rap for him, and then he just put an AI filter over it. It ruins the song Rather Lie, which is one of the best songs on the album, a solid performance from The Weeknd, an extremely good beat, and then this melodic vocal performance from Carti, except it's not actually him, and it ruins the song. Also, it makes the song Fine Shit extremely bland. I won't go into the whole controversy surrounding AI, but I will say that he's a scumbag for using it on this album, especially when he was able to perform nearly 28 other tracks, but he decided for these two, he's too lazy. Now for the features. Let's start off with Kendrick. I will not be delving into Kendrick's hypocrisy for being on this album, but I will say that he's quite charismatic on the album. His ad-libs are amusing on Mojo Jojo. He has a really solid chorus on the song Backdoor, and a really solid verse on Good Credit. Nothing crazy for him, he's done way better on other features, but solid performances all around. Travis is also solid, but nothing mind-blowing. In fact, I'd say most of his verses are quite forgettable. Lil Uzi Vert also appears on this album. He's quite poor. His first verse on this album was just really bad, and then for some odd reason, he gets an entire track to himself. The whole song of Twin Trim is literally just Uzi. Absolutely no point in that existing. I believe Skepta had the best verse on the album with Toxic, but he himself cannot save Carti's poor performance on that song, nor just the forgettable production. And Future and Young Thug both have good parts that are harmed by this horrible mixing that I will get into. Speaking of the mixing, firstly, the ad-libs. Oh my God, they are annoying. The Swamp Izzo shouting is so loud on every song. It absolutely takes over everything. It's a jump scare. It literally frightened me while I was listening to it. Whenever I heard the Swamp Izzo, I bursted back. It was just terrible. It was actually ruining songs for me, especially on OPM Baby. Well, that song's already bad, but those ad-libs did not help as they randomly punched in. Also, the ad-libs are just offbeat. They didn't even fit. Speaking more of the mixing, the further you get on the album, the worse that it gets. It just begins to sound kind of disgusting, muddy. Things don't stand out. Everything kind of meshes together. It's just like unmastered demos. And there's also just some really, really lazy mixing, like with Young Thug's verse on on We Need All the Vibes, and Future's verse on Trim, where they just sound like they're floating above the beat. They're not even a part of the song. It's like it was slapped together. But the most terrible example of the mixing is on Like Wheezy, where the beat noticeably goes quieter when Cardi raps and then goes extremely loud once he's done rapping. It scared me multiple times because I'm listening to the song, it's all quiet, and then just randomly, I don't understand how this was so rushed, especially when he had the entire Biden administration to make this album. Overall, this album is an absolute bloated mess. There's so many tracks that could have been cut, so many of them needed a new mix, so many of them needed better performances from Cardi, so on, so on. There's so much poor quality on this album. There are spots of hope, but there's nothing that will make my playlist or that I'll be revisiting, nothing that blew my mind. So overall, this album is just a solid 3 out of 10. Really nothing worth revisiting here, and I'm gonna probably forget about it by the end of the year.